So, guten Abend, liebe Gewichtheberfreunde. Wir haben heute eine ganz besondere Episode für euch. Ich und der Christian freuen uns schon seit Wochen darauf, das endlich aufnehmen zu können. Und wir haben es jetzt auch geschafft. Deswegen hat die zweite Episode jetzt auch ein bisschen länger gebraucht, bis wir sie jetzt endlich aufnehmen. Aber ich glaube, dafür haben wir uns was ganz Besonderes für euch überlegt. Ich glaube, das gibt es in dieser Form in Österreich noch gar nicht. Und da freuen wir uns sehr darüber, dass wir das auf die Beine gestellt haben. Der Christian wird euch jetzt dann kurz auch noch was sagen und dann dann stelle ich euch unseren Gast für heute vor. Das ist unsere erste Episode, wo wir einen Gast haben. Das heißt, wir werden dann auch später den Podcast in Englisch machen. Für alle, die vielleicht nicht so gut Englisch sprechen, ich würde es mir trotzdem anhören, weil es wird, glaube ich,
Wir
sehr
auch nicht,
interessant
also das
werden.
ist kein Problem.
Ja.
Nein, ich will eigentlich gar nicht viel sagen. Wir wollen die Zeit von unserem Gesprächspartner heute nicht verschwenden. Nur Hallo von meiner Seite. Ich freue mich schon auf das kommende Gespräch. Ja, und von mir aus kann es losgehen.
Genau. Wen wir heute zu Gast haben, ist der amerikanische Trainer Spencer Arnold. Den kennen vielleicht manche von euch aus der Weightlifting-Szene. Er ist Senior International Coach in Amerika, leitet dort Power and Grace Performance, hat unter anderem Athleten wie Jordan Dela Cruz, Harrison Morris und andere olympische Athleten, die sich auf Olympia vorbereiten oder die auch nahe diesem Level sind. Er ist selber aktiver Gewichtheber gewesen, war da auch auf der nationalen Ebene in Amerika aktiv. Das heißt, ein sehr, sehr guter Mann, was Gewichtheben angeht in Amerika. Und ich und der Christian werden jetzt dann ein paar Sachen über das Gewichtheben fragen.
Bevor wir damit
that was the
anfangen,
introduction.
vielleicht nur ganz kurz noch, stellt sicher, dass ihr auf alle Fälle dann die Homepage aufruft, die ich dann noch da einblenden werde, nämlich Power and Grace Performance. Es gibt dort einen Blog mit wahnsinnig viel wertvoller freier Information. Es gibt dort Webinare auch zu kaufen, die ich nur wärmstens ans Herz legen kann. Wahnsinnig viel gute Information, gerade zum Thema Trainingsplanung auf unterschiedlichen Levels. Also wie gesagt, auf alle Fälle auf der Homepage vorbeischauen und schauen, was es dort für euch gibt.
So, perfect. So, Spencer, the first topic we would like to talk about is the meet that you had now on the weekend. I think you ran a meet now at Power and Grace Performance. How did that go?
Went really well. It's my first time running a meet at all, and so go big or go home. I guess we ran one. Really, honestly, guys, out of necessity. Our guys and our girls have not been on a competition platform for so long because of the pandemic that we needed to have the ability to put them on one and give them a fresh taste of a competition platform before hopefully we headed back into competition season. And so it was just a fun event. Really, it felt like the weightlifting community kind of got back a little bit together. We had some big names that aren't on our team come and compete at it. And no real massive prizes, anything like that. Didn't mean anything. Just a bunch of people having a good time slinging weight around. So it went really well. Tons and tons and tons of volunteers, lots of help. I would have never been able to do it without that. But gosh, it was just good to have weightlifters yelling and screaming and excited and all of that. It was just good to have that.
Because everything else before was now online competition as far as USW goes, right?
Yeah. We did the Uzbekistan online one, and some of the other USA, and they're just, they serve a purpose, but they're just not the same. And so we kind of got a little that we were over those, and so we wanted to do something in person.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think
Is there an outlook already for the upcoming event? So how's the competition season going to progress?
Yeah, they have an idea of what it should look like, but to be very frank, that idea has changed and shifted every week. So the idea is that we would have a national championships in December that would serve as a qualifying meet really for the rest of the year and as a re-qualifier for the Pan American Championships, which is our last Olympic qualifier. So in theory, we do nationals in December, maybe some other Olympic qualifying event in between if they have one. I think there's potentially the East Asian Championships, and then the Pan American Championships in April, Olympics in July, August. That's the hope. And then, next year, if everything kind of opens back up, there's 2 Pan Ams, there's a World, there's 2 Junior Pan Ams, there's just meet after meet after meet. So if everything opens back up.
And from your team, it would be Jordan, right? That is in contention for the Olympics. Harrison, probably. Morgan.
So Harrison, Jordan technically are near the top. So if everything stayed just like it is right now, they would go. Morgan is in contention, though. If everything, she has some work to do. If she were to get there, she'd have to beat out Jordan. Yeah. And so, I guess those 3 are still in the hunt. There's some other Americans that also have a shot that are not in that sort of top 8. So they're still not quite decided yet. But certainly, Jordan and Harrison are on track.
So for Morgan, it was kind of like a bit of a blessing because she can still do some competitions now where she can try to beat out Jordan, right?
Exactly, and that's true for more than just Morgan. If the Olympics had gone as planned, Morgan, we thought that was happening when she went to a meet and it didn't go. It went great, but it wasn't enough. And we thought, all right, man, great run. That was a great shot. Same thing with some other Americans that, hey, great run, great shot. But then everybody extended for a year, and now there are truly more people are getting opportunities to chase down the Olympics again, only because of a pandemic.
And how did the training of your athletes change now in regards of the pandemic? Because Jordan and Harrison probably were full steam ahead to go into the Olympics, so you probably had to make some major changes now, and probably quick changes also mentally probably not easy for them.
Yeah, very different. 2 very different lifters in 2 very different places. Harrison was still very committed, though he needed some time, right? He needed some time away when it all got postponed, and he took some time. He likes the outdoors and went camping and just got away for a week or so. And
I think I saw that on Instagram.
Yes, yeah. He just loves being outside, and so he got away and turned his phone off and came back a week later and was kind of ready to get going again. So Harrison and I have a relatively new relationship, and so it actually has been helpful for him to have another year because we've been able to learn and get things right for him, and it's been helpful. For Jordan, on the flip side, it took much longer for her to get past not going to Olympics and mentally kind of get to a place where she could push the gas pedal and train hard again. Also, she was peaked. We've done it. I've had that girl for a long time. We've done everything right. We were in a really great place to follow a plan and go to the Olympics and put up a really big total. So somehow we had to take 4 years of planning, pump the brakes, and try and figure out how to reconstruct that. And we're still, if we're being really honest, we're still in the process of reconstructing that to get her back to that same place so that we're ready to peak again. But she took some time off, and then when she came back, just didn't quite do the same intensity or frequency of workouts even. So, yeah. It's always challenging. Really, what is it? End of September. They're neither one of them were planning on lifting at this time of the year.
You probably planned like an off phase now after the Olympics, yeah.
Yeah, they were going to be on for 2 or 3 months at least. So,
there's another question that popped up to me when I watched the meet that you ran. Because one of your female lifters in the 59 kilo category, Shayla Moore, besides the incredible performance, I also read about her on your blog, where you mentioned once that she got recruited by USA Weightlifting out of acrobatics or tumbling. I don't know. Mm-hmm. So that really interests me. Is there a certain kind of recruiting process that's done by the USA Weightlifting Federation? How does that work? Because that's something that's really non-existent in Austria.
Yeah, so USA Weightlifting has a program that's headed by Susie Sanchez that she essentially goes to college sports and high school sports and finds athletes through combines and testing to find out if they're a good fit for weightlifting. And if they're finishing their college sport and they're not moving into another sport or moving something to have something to move on to, then she recruits them to come into the sport. And then based on the testing, she funds them. So if they're someone like Shayla, she was funded for a little while by USA Weightlifting to train for the sport. And then what they do is they grab them, they get a commitment, and then they basically say, hey, like, where are you going to live? Like, where are you living now? Where do you want to live? And then they set them up with a coach that's qualified in that area. I got lucky because Shayla's family lives near me. And so she moved back to be with her family and was able to train with me. And so that's how Shayla has happened. We have another girl that was recruited from the same college as Shayla that went through the same process. So there's people like that all over the country. I mean, that they have recruited from track and field or from rowing or from wherever to be like that. Yeah.
Is that recruiting process just taking place like at the college age, or you're also starting to scout at a younger age already?
Yeah, I mean, most of it's coming from end of college athletic careers, because if you're a gifted athlete in high school in America, you tend to be doing something that's more not weightlifting.
Yeah. Okay.
And there tends to be scholarship opportunities to get your school paid for. And so it's hard. There's a couple successful weightlifting programs in America at the college level. And so they're recruiting some now to go to college, get college scholarships, and lift on the weightlifting team.
That's what Travis Smash is trying to do, right? He's running some.
Yeah. He's running one at Lenore-Rhine. There's another one up at Northern Michigan. And then there's one down in South Georgia, Bruton Parker. And so, I mean, there's 3 or 4 out there that are good, but they're certainly not, they don't have the appeal of, say, volleyball or football or lacrosse or whatever. So,
besides maybe that recruiting process we just talked about now, I think especially in the States, CrossFit is going to be a big force when it comes to getting new lifters into CrossFit. I mean, the meet that you ran was No Excuses CrossFit. If I saw it right. Here in Austria, we see more lifters coming out of CrossFit and just focusing on weightlifting now, but there's still like no real connection between the Austrian Weightlifting Federation and the CrossFit boxes or CrossFit gyms. Is there something in the States that really tries to connect those two areas, or is it just, okay, whoever wants to lift is allowed to cross over?
There's nothing official. What typically happens is people will go to a CrossFit gym, and because they want to do something for health and fitness, or they want to work out, and then they'll start doing CrossFit and find that they like weightlifting more than they like the fitness piece. And then they'll start to venture down the weightlifting world. We've had a lot of people do that. But in the same sense, Jordan, Morgan, Jesse, Stimmo, and to some extent Harrison all came to weightlifting because of CrossFit. So either their coach was a CrossFit coach that helped them get started, or they went to a CrossFit gym to train for something else and found weightlifting that way. And so, I mean, it's really just a matter of walking in and finding out that you're either really good at the Olympic lifts or like the Olympic lifts better. And then you find either your coach there helps you, or you find a qualified coach to help you. That's how it kind of works in our world, CrossFit, just because of the utility of the Olympic lifts is causing it that way.
What we see here a lot is that quite a few people that are crossing over from CrossFit to weightlifting is that they are able to really get a very good performance on the weightlifting platform pretty quick in a short amount of training time, actually. So we usually use that fact to point out that it is very important, like, to build a very good base, not just focused solely on the Olympic lifts, but when it comes to strength and general physical preparedness and stuff like that. Is there anything that you approach differently when you know that that there is an athlete crossing over from CrossFit, maybe competed in CrossFit already, who has a very good base? Because from the webinars that I looked, I know that you're rather on the volume side when it comes to programming. So what we experience very often is that the volume that maybe a CrossFitter is able to achieve in training would not be able with someone who is just spent his time on weightlifting when he grew up in weightlifting in Austria.
Yeah, so I would say a couple things. I assess a CrossFitter the same way I assess anybody. So I'm going to work them through a basic movement screen. I'm going to test them the same way. But that's going to happen no matter what. But there are definitely some tendencies. CrossFitters, ironically, despite the inability to handle large volume, they tend to have great work capacity. And so it gives me the base in which to build acclimation to volume. And so I don't have to worry so much about building work capacity because they come with great work capacity. CrossFitters, though, they got all kinds of technical errors is generally the number one thing. They just, because they've been trying to do a lot of reps fast, they're not, and efficiency in that regard looks way different than efficiency at a 1 rep max. And so their efficiency is actually inefficient for what we're trying to do. So I have to break it down and really correct a lot of stuff. The other thing is just a like a lot of people come with shoulder injuries or shoulder problems, just from the amount of upper body, again, at high speed with very little control, a lot of upper body work that they do. And that's not so much CrossFit's fault as much as it is just the culture of go fast regardless of the outcome. And so a lot of times I'm having to program really specific accessories to help reteach and heal to some degree poor shoulder health. So those are really the things we see, but their work capacity is the best part. And generally they're relatively strong for their lifts, but their work capacity is the best part. I can use work capacity to build acclimation to volume, and then once I can get them adjusted to volume, then it's on, right? Then you can get a whole bunch of reps in at 60, 70, 75%, which is going to reteach all their technical errors. So the privilege of a CrossFitter is that they come in with a big work capacity, and that's easy to build on. For sure.
Would you say, like, from your experiences with CrossFitters, that it's sometimes hard for them mentally switching over from CrossFit to weightlifting to realize that you don't have to go always heavy on the lift? You can stay on the lighter side. You can build, like you said, you can build like a nice volume load with loads between 60 to 75% and achieve like a quality of reps instead of just going heavy on something. I feel like that's what I noticed with my lifters, that when they switch over from CrossFit, they used to just going, okay, it's this complex until I fail, basically. And they don't realize that the quality of the work is what we want with weightlifting.
I found that CrossFitters are really good at following a program by and large, right? They're used to getting however many workouts and following it. And so girls better than guys, but generally by and large, CrossFitters follow a program well. They're going to ask a lot of questions, and they're going to want to go heavy, and they're going to ask you why they can't. And so that's a good coach should help explain to them why they're not or why they're not, why they are. In America, the people you got to watch out for wanting to go heavy are the 18, 19, 20-year-old boys. Which is because they're 18, 19, 20-year-old boys. They've got the most testosterone in the body they'll ever have. They just want to throw around heavy weight, and really, to some degree, you need to let them. But those are the ones you're beating your head over against the wall, trying to get them to not go heavy all the time. But by and large, CrossFitters are good at following a program. You just got to be able to explain why we're not going heavy, because they are used to, hey, we're going to do a 12-minute EMOM and build to a maximum clean and jerk. And so just helping to explain to them why we don't do that, compare and understanding cross the standpoint. If you're going to
weightlifting clubs, like they want to recruit CrossFitters, but they then tell them everything you did before was bullshit. Just throw everything out, and that just doesn't help anyone. So what Christian and I are doing, like, we both run programs inside the CrossFit box, so trying to recruit by coaching there and also knowing the athletes that switch over and everything, and like explaining stuff. I think that this is probably the same way it is in America, because you don't have any formal recruiting from CrossFit, but you have oftentimes like barbell clubs right next to a CrossFit box. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's critical. Understanding what you're pulling from is critical.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the screen froze, at least at my end of the meeting for like a minute. So I didn't really catch
with
up.
me, it was fine.
Okay, perfect. So I didn't really get what you were saying. But there's another topic we want to discuss with you, and so it makes a little bit of a harsh turning point now. But we also know that you already spent quite some time to get into velocity-based training for weightlifting.
Yeah.
And that's something we are trying to figure out for ourselves as well. So maybe without getting into the details of like the practical application within a training session, but just as a general overview for people who are watching this now and maybe haven't really thought about using velocity-based training for weightlifting, what would you say is like the most common denominator for using velocity-based training in weightlifting?
Gosh, weightlifting is a speed sport. It's a sport based around speed. The bar moves fast, the lifter moves faster. It is negligent of a coach to not consider that how strong an athlete is doesn't matter if the bar doesn't move fast. And so velocity-based training for weightlifting is, I think, the next frontier for understanding. People have been doing this for 50 years. The stopwatches and watching it with their eyes. And good coaches stop lifters when the bar slows down and they see it with their eyes. Well, now we have the ability to actually tangibly measure what the bar speed is. And when it starts to slow down past a certain point, either stop the lifter there or pull them back, both in the squats and in the lift. And so velocity-based training is essentially an auto-regulator. I mean, all it is gives the coach another tool to auto-regulate a lifter based on how they're moving the bar that day. And it does it, if a coach is wise, specific to the lifter, because they've built some sort of profile based on that specific lifter. For us, it's been an incredibly helpful tool. One of the tools we use, been an incredibly helpful tool for understanding certain traits about our lifters. I know what Jordan's able to get away with from a speed standpoint. Her bar doesn't move that fast. She's just crazy efficient. But I've also, on the flip side, seen Harrison just make bars move so freaking fast that he's able to get away with some inefficiency because the bar's moving so fast. Those are all things we've learned about them because of having velocity-based training and profiles as a part of their training. So it lets us understand, hey, I'm trying to achieve X in the training today. That desired output comes from this speed. Therefore, let's make sure that we're achieving that speed today, regardless of the weight. So
Gives you like more exact RPEs, basically, right? So
exactly that. I mean, if I plan a session to be an 8 out of 10 RPE, then I know, and it's a squat session, I know that Harrison Morris needs to squat at 0.5 meters per second. If I see it drop below that, we're now into 9s and 10s. And so we're going to pull some weight off, 100%.
I was once attending a seminar with Mike Tashir, the powerlift and powerlifting coach, who really like introduced the RPE concept into the world of powerlifting. And he once said about the RPEs, it's like you take a certain kind of program that you give to your athletes, and if you like put the RPE as an auto-regulation technique on it, it's like putting a better like rifle scope onto your rifle. So you don't really change the program. What you get out of it is you get a more exact way to regulate training. So would you say that's like the most important thing that we could get out of it, to have really quantifiable data?
Yes, that's the best. I mean, it just tells good weightlifting coaches what they already know objectively, instead of us feeling like I doubt myself all the time. Man, did I really see that? Maybe we'll see another rep and let's see. cameras don't lie. I mean, units don't lie. I mean, data doesn't lie. And so the beauty of velocity-based training is it quantifies what we've always kind of subjectively known. And so in that quantifying of data, we're able to be more specific, like you said, more rifle shot focused on a desired output. It makes sure that we're taking the variance of the output and we're just narrowing that funnel a little bit. So we're going to have some variance, right? But I'm going to make sure that it's less, that range of variance is smaller because auto regulation through velocity-based training.
Do you use it on of course, on squats probably and pulls also? Did you get into using it on full lifts now also, or are you still in figuring it out?
Yeah, we're on it on full lifts. Been doing it for full lifts for about a year. The reason we couldn't before is I care about accuracy more than I care about anything else, right? And so with the GymAware units, which is a tethered unit, which was always super accurate, you just couldn't do the lifts because you would drop the bar on the unit, and the tether itself became a hazard, and so I couldn't do it. Well, Perch is a system here based out of Boston, and they're a camera-based system, so it sits on a stand and just watches the bar and pushes everything to a tablet. And so now I can do the lift, get quantifiable data that's accurate, and not have any danger. And so now we're doing it with the lift. So I mean, truly, I mean, Jordan will do power cleans as a warm up for full cleans, and she's got to move the bar at a certain speed during those power cleans. I could care less what the weight is, just to help her train really, really big, huge, large force production, right? Really big power outputs before she starts doing cleans, because that girl can make cleans at numbers that everybody says is impossible from a speed standpoint. She just somehow does it, which is a huge asset. But if I can get her to move the bar a little faster too, now we're talking.
The Perch system, does that track mean velocity probably and peak velocity, I would guess?
Mean velocity, peak velocity, mean power, peak power, eccentric time, eccentric force, makes tracks of everything.
Also bar displacement probably, vertical.
Well, they're working on that. So that's the thing, is they want to make sure and do that really well, is be able to show bar displacement horizontally and also be able to give immediate feedback of bar track.
Did you ever look
so
into the German weightlifting has the real analyzer, it's called, I think, that basically does almost everything already that you described now. Like, it shows you, I worked with that system a couple times. It also gives you all the velocities, all the power outputs. It even gives you velocities at certain times of the lift. For example, it gives you the velocity from the first phase, from the floor until the knees, and then for a second phase and so on. It's a very interesting system.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah,
no, I've never seen that. I picked up the Perch system because we use it at this high school that I'm at, and so all the racks here have it. Cool. So all of my high school kids use it for everything, and so it's a relatively affordable system that let me buy 12 units. That's 12 of those in our weight room. You know, that's just, I imagine that the system you're talking about, having 12 of them would be crazy.
Yeah, it's rather expensive, but it is also a camera system. It also films. It also works with a camera, and it's very interesting because it gives you like basically everything you would need for weightlifting. And it was specifically, as far as I know, it was specifically made for weightlifting, which is interesting because I feel like most of the systems are made for strength and conditioning, and we use them for weightlifting then. What
maybe
what? Yeah.
Entschuldige. Okay. I just wanted to follow up on what you say, because you already said that, like, you mentioned two of your lifters and you see like different profiles or different speeds that they get away with in order to still make the lift. So there's some variation between individuals, obviously, but probably you're not going to treat every movement the same. So based on technical efficiency, in a full Olympic lift, there are so many factors that can influence the speed of the lift, besides just physical properties. So I would imagine, and that's what I'm trying to start at the moment actually, is that the first starting point would be squats. for me if I want to get into velocity-based training for weightlifting.
Yeah, 100%. Squats are the easiest, most controllable thing. Start with that.
So
definitely.
for me, at least my way of thinking is that gives me the chance to, in order to create a profile first, of course, because the way we go about it now without using velocity-based training is just we use the percentages and see, okay, what's her back squat or front squat 1 RM, and so I can calculate, okay, what would I like her to be able to snatch and clean with that weight. Do you look specifically at the force velocity profile now instead of just like the absolute load values, and try to influence the force velocity profile that you get out of a lifter? So like you really try to get higher speed at certain sub-maximal intensities, or just improving like absolute strength? Or how does that change the approach to programming the squats for a certain lifter?
Yeah, so we don't discount absolute load at all. I mean, like I said, it's like one of 7 or 8 factors that we take into account when programming and writing for lifters. And I'm absolutely trying to get that force velocity curve to shift on all of our lifters in whatever direction makes most sense for them. Mm-hmm. So that does mean at sub-maximal loads, making them move at or above a certain speed. And we 100% do that, both in the squats and the lifts. If I'm at 75% for Harrison, we did this. I mean, he just finished a cycle where he would do 12 singles in the snatch at 80% or 75%. And he was allowed to go up to 12 as long as his speed was above a certain speed. I'm actively trying to move him one way or the other. Same thing in squats. I mean, we'll do that in the squats too. So we absolutely will do it at submaximal loads. 100% I care about the relationship of, for like Harrison, relationship of, big squats to the lift. So am I trying to close that gap for him just as a model for efficiency? Jordan's is already really close. So I'm actually trying to increase her gap a little bit because I don't think it's possible. I'll just bring the lifts with it. But Harrison, I'm actually trying to close that gap, make him a little more of an efficient lifter. And so that's just one picture. We'll say one piece of the picture for us. And the more pieces I can have, I think the more clear I can be in the way that I create programming. Absolutely.
And so, as we said, with the squat, maybe it's easier to achieve that because there are not so many variables that are going to influence speed of the bar. How do you see the carryover when it comes to measuring velocity in the pull to the actual velocity in the full competition lift? Do you approach a pull basically like just the first half of the competition lift speed-wise, or are there any certain, I don't know, relations that you want to achieve?
Yeah, the pull is generally slower than the actual competition lift for 2 reasons. 1, the lifter knows they don't have to complete the lift, so they're not going as fast. 2, there's a deceleration phase at the top end. So when I'm doing a clean pull and I'm stopping, there's a deceleration phase that just instinctively you're gonna decelerate. Just like in a bench press, right? If I could throw the bar and let go of it, that velocity is much higher. But I know that I've got to stop it at the end of it. So there's going to be a deceleration phase. So pulls are generally a little slower, and just knowing that you account for that. So if my lifter is typically moving a clean at 1.3 meters per second, then I'm going to look at pulls that are 1.1. I'm going to have them shoot for 1.1, and vice versa. It's like if Jordan is moving a clean at 1.1, maybe I'm going to let her move them at 0.9 meters per second. So there's a correlation there, or know that, right? Like know that. And maybe we're doing accommodating resistance work, or maybe we're doing a speed day for pulls. Then I'm going to make her pull it at the speed that she does the actual lift, which will naturally be lighter than the lift itself. So just knowing that relationship helps you program for the intended output. That's the key to velocity training. Is not that you just do something. It's that I desire today, like if I'm in a classic like West Side system, and I'm going to have a heavy day, like a maximal lift day, and then a accommodating resistance day where I'm lower weight, high speed, knowing that that's my goal, well, I can have velocity make sure I'm achieving both of those goals. And then I can make sure, because of velocity profiling, that I'm getting exactly those results for that lifter. And so that's kind of how it plays out as far as profiling, and then making sure that the relationship. The thing with the Olympic lifts is there's so many variables, like you said. My bar can slow down, not because of anything that I've tried to do, except that the bar is just a little forward. And so you got to be careful that you're not, like, I don't use it for the Olympic lifts except with very elite lifters, because I care way more about them moving the bar well than I care about them moving it fast, right? Let's move it well, and then what moving it well will cause it to move fast. And so with Harrison, I use it less because we're trying to work on his technical efficiency. With Jordan, it's a gold mine because she's already so efficient.
Because that actually leads to my next,
absolutely, inefficiency impacts speed.
Leads to my perfectly to my next question, because when it comes to like judging the speed of the bar, what we often use in Austria is like the key figures that we get from German weightlifting and from the Institute of Training Science there. So from someone who does a lot of velocity tracking with a lot of different athletes, let's just say we have a key figure for a certain weight class. They say, okay, the bar has to move at 1.8. That would be like the Vmax we want to see. Is there a big variance on the speed that people actually get away with? Let's assume they are on a efficient technical level.
Yes, huge variance. If I could take Morgan King and Jordan Delacruz and put them right next to each other, same weight class, same country, both female, and the variance on what Morgan can get away with and versus Jordan can get away with on the speed thing is massively different. And that is, the factors on that are both physiological and well, physiological, they're anthropomorphic, like their body segments look different, and then just like propensity of training, right? Like Jordan is not as powerful as Morgan is. Jordan is more efficient than Morgan is. Some of that is training background and things they've done in training. Some of that is purely physiological from a muscle composition makeup. Some of that is just they're designed with their segment lengths and their bones to be more efficient at one versus the other. And that can be massively different. There is no chance, 0% chance Morgan King is going to make a clean below 1.2 meters per second. Just 0% chance. Jordan does that at 80%. And that, the same weight class. So absolutely, there's huge variance. And everybody's trying to do it on height right now, and height doesn't tell the whole story.
Yes. So that makes it absolutely necessary to like collect data in order to profile your athlete before you can really make assumptions for programming out of the data that you get.
The data should affirm what you already see with your eye. Like I knew that about both of them already just from watching them, but all the data did was affirm for me what I knew with my eye. And it gave me some new insights on Morgan, especially. But it didn't tell me anything massively critical that I didn't intuitively kind of already know, but it made it more firm. And like I said, it narrowed my assumptions to more objective fact.
I think the main takeaway point could be that you could use velocity to already help you understand what you see already in the lifter, and then make like a personalized RPE scale out of it, kind of like a personalized velocity-based RPE scale, so that you no longer have to question your eye. Sometimes you have it written down and you know exactly, okay, when you move at this speed, we have to do this and that. We have to move the weights down, maybe, or move them up. I think that's the main point I'm taking away from it.
Yeah, essentially that's what you do. You go with, you make a general template, right? If I know that Jordan fails her squats at 0.3 meters per second, then I know that's 100%. And I know that 90% is 0.38 meters per second. And you just build from there. And so you essentially correlate it to percentages. And then you think about, if I'm trying to get them to do an 8 RPE today, what percentage is that? And then you correlate that to the speed, knowing full well that they may walk in your gym that day and 80% might be 90% or 80% might be 70%, but you have a speed to make sure that you're getting the desired input or output.
In order to handle situations where like the daily readiness just shifts, do you also use the device to test daily readiness? Maybe like, I don't know, do some jumping or some other stuff in order to figure out daily readiness?
Yeah, I mean, you could, and I know a lot of people that do. I know a friend that's trying to get me to go in on this relative strength index idea that you can tell a lot by somebody's ability to jump, no counter movement, just do a series of like 3 or 4 jumps and use a jump mat and a gym aware and be able to tell a lot about their readiness. The problem with readiness, guys, is if you do it every day, athletes tend to not be the most enthusiastic about it, and the data then can be skewed. That's the problem with readiness tests, is I can't trust them. Where I am invested in readiness is some of the objective factors that they can't skew, like what's their HRV, what's their how long do they spend in REM sleep, what is their blood pressure, what's their body weight, how many calories are they having, is their appetite down. Those kinds of things they can't skew. And so we have a lot of things that we've got on our athletes collecting that kind of data. What's their core temperature when they're sleeping? All those things help me build a profile. And then basically through test and analysis, when they're having a bad day and it looks like they're not ready, and I can look at their readiness score and go, gosh, they were down 15 points, but really they were down 30% in this factor. And that becomes my litmus test, you know? And so I think finding something that's not so subjective from a readiness scale, and then finding which one is most specific to the athlete and paying attention to that. Some athletes, when they're overtrained, don't sleep well. Some athletes, when they're overtrained, sleep normal, and sleep doesn't tell you anything. And so just finding the factor, and that is why you got to just take a broad test and then find what that factor is that is your red light, and then pay attention to that per athlete. Jordan, I can tell when she's getting overtrained because she starts to get kind of like sinusy and sick, like the sick stuff starts to show up. I can tell when Harrison's overtrained because emotionally he's stressed, he gets a little testy. But for both of them, we've got this new system that we're working on to kind of see if there's other factors that are less subjective besides sickly and emotionally testy. I mean, I would love to be able to look at REM sleep and HRV and be able to know if today's a great day, let's go for it, or today's a day that we need to back down. But I need something. The problem with jumping is athletes have to want to jump high. And some days athletes just don't want to jump high, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Okay. And the last question I have in that context is, let's just assume you have a day where you see like the bar is not moving at the speed you would expect it to be at that certain percentage. What would be like the steps that you take from there? Do you adjust like the daily 1RM that you calculate off according to the speed that you get in the like sub-maximal lifts, or do you depend? Does it depend on the training phase you're in, if it's more like a volume phase or a peaking phase?
Yeah, depends a lot on what was supposed to happen that day. If it's a day where it's relatively high intensity but low volume, I'm just going to adjust the intensity so that it matches the desired output. So I'm just going to, they're supposed to hit a bunch of singles at 90% and they're moving slow that day. They're still going to hit a bunch of singles at the speed they were supposed to hit them at. They're just going to do it at a lower weight because the speed's not there. But if it's a day where they've got like 6 doubles followed by a bunch of pulls and the volume itself, and I think based on the data collection, I think it's overtraining, then I'm probably just going to pull the volume back. It still mandates certain speeds, but the speeds were already slow that day anyway because it's volume. I mean, they're not going to be super snappy and fast on a week that's full of volume. And so I'm going to pull some of the volume away in that case because I think maybe the factor that's most important that's most impacting their performance is volume. So it kind of depends on the phase of training, where we are in the mesocycle or what mesocycle we're in the macro cycle. Depends on how I adjust. It also depends on the athlete. Some athletes, like Jordan, can always do volume. Always. I mean, there's just no, even on her worst days, she chews it up and spits it out. It's just got to be adjusted from a percentage standpoint. With Harrison, volume's like his kryptonite. So I have to be careful with him.
So you could probably also use all that data really nicely for peaking on later on in what I mean is if you overshoot for a competition and the athlete is maybe peaked a little bit too early, that you then can use your velocity to make decisions to add a little bit of volume back in to get them ready for the competition.
Yes, absolutely. People think we're weird. We show up at the World Championships with devices and tablets, but it's exactly for that reason. So if I see them peaking too early, I can add in some stuff or some reps or some sets to slow them down a little bit and get a natural, see if I can create a little bit of an alarm phase. It's like a mini one to slow them down just a hair so that they peak at the right time and they super compensate at the right time.
Perfect. That makes a lot of sense. I think it just gives you a clearer outlook on everything. It just gives you more, not detail, but it just helps you to like find the right solution for the athlete at the moment. It just, what used to be just by feel, we can now finally have data on that and have like exact decisions made because of this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect.
And so, like, in order to wrap it up, there's just like one maybe a little shorter question that I want to bring up. We talked a lot about Jordan De La Cruz already, and in an interview that she had on All Things Gym, I think it was the World Cup in Rome. She was talking about her jerk a little bit and on technique adjustments or whatever, and she also mentioned that she worked a lot with visualization. Is that something you bring in on purpose, or is it something she came up with? Do you really use it in a structured way, or is it just like, okay, sit down and think about what the lift should look and feel like for you?
Guys, I stick to what I know and I stay the heck away from things I don't know anything about. And visualization is I don't ever have to visualize making a big lift. I just do it. Like I don't have it. That's just not my game. And so I refer that out. So we have a sports psychologist that does all of that work for our team, that handles that work for our team. She talks to Melissa, handles, and they do that together. And I know it's kind of what's going on, but truly under American psychiatric laws, like I don't even really know what else is going on in that relationship. I just know that I was like, she's doing something that's working. Keep doing that.
Yeah.
Really and truly. I talk to a sports psych every week as well. It's not. I mean, it's a big part of our program, but yeah, that's 100%. I refer that out. You don't want me in charge of the psyche.
No, that's totally fine. I think I would handle it the same way, but that answers my question. So that's something that's brought in a structured way by like a professionalist in the end. Because
100%. I think it's important.
I don't know how to do it, and I wouldn't know how to approach it, so I would have to refer it to somebody else as well. But I think it's especially on that elite level. I think it could be, if the athlete responds, it could be a very helpful tool, especially in a sport of weightlifting.
It's super important for everybody. I don't care who you are. It's helpful. Weightlifting is a hard sport. I mean, it is a hard sport. You add in weightlifting on a perfect day is a hard sport. You add in a pandemic, you add in the Olympics, you add in the fact that your teammates are competing for the same spot. You're trying, all that stuff. Again, it's impossible without some sort of sports psychology. And so people that think it's like taboo or don't want to do it, that's good. Good. Continue to do that because we'll take advantage of it and be better than you. It's in my mind, one of the top 4 or 5 things every athlete should be doing to be great at the sport.
Yeah, because that's exactly why I wanted to bring that up. Because I think it's a thing that's still frowned a little bit upon by some people, especially like the old school weightlifting coaches.
Yeah.
So just like get your shit together and go through it.
Yeah.
So and I really think about bringing that in. I mean, I don't want to play psychologist, but bring somebody in who could do that.
In my mind, it's right next to nutrition and sleep and water intake and sports med. It's one of the most important factors.
I think as far you answered all our questions for today perfectly.
Awesome.
It's awesome. So we don't want to steal much more of your time. Maybe we could end it up with a little bit of an outlook. So we already talked in the beginning about the changes that had to be made due to the pandemic and the cancellation of the Olympics and a lot of other competitions. So what's your plan from now on? Let's assume that the dates stay like they are planned now.
Plan is to go to nationals in 9 weeks to blow the doors off of it. Have a great meet for our whole team, not just Jordan, Harrison, Morgan, but our whole team.
How many lifters you're going to bring there?
Do amazing. Somewhere between 50 and 60, which will be a crazy weekend for me. I say that out loud like it's no big deal, but like how is that going to happen? I have no idea. But go do that, have a great meet, do it, and then after that, hopefully do some sort of silver event for the Olympic qualifying. Check some boxes there, which will free up then Harrison and Jordan after getting that silver event, free them both up to just go for a really big total at the Pan Ams in April, qualify for the Olympics, go to the Olympics in July and August, pat both of them on the back and give them 3 months off while I chase down Pan Ams and Worlds with our other lifters. Mm-hmm. And then those two will decide if they want to do it all over again, and then they'll come back and we'll do this thing all over again. The downside to the pandemic for the coach is I lost my time off. I'm supposed to be off right now too because there's nothing going on. In a perfect world, there's nothing going on right now. Well, there is. And so I don't get time off, but we've got 3 or 4 in the pipeline headed to 2024. Okay. And so then it's just right back into that.
Okay. I know I said we are going to end it here, but now I have to ask, if you bring a team as big as that to the nationals, how many coaches are going there with you to assist you? I mean, you're just like sprinting from platform to platform otherwise.
I've got 3 other coaches that I trust. One of them will not be helping me because she's competing and it's really important for her, that meet. And so she will not, but I will recruit some other help. There's some great coaches in our state that are phenomenal helpers. They know that I'm crazy and do crazy things. And if I'm left to my own devices, I'm going to put myself in situations that are not ideal. And so I'll just lean on some of those lifters and some of those coaches. Some of my mentors will help me, but it'll be a big event, so we'll all kind of be there to help each other. There was an event last year that was super, super important. It was the World Championship qualifier for Jordan and for Morgan and for a bunch of people on our team. And I had 6 people competing at the same time. All 6 of them were either fighting for a podium or a World Championship spot. And they were on 3 different platforms. There was just no way for me to coach them all. So I assigned them all a coach that I trusted, and I ran like a chicken with my head cut off from platform to platform. It turned out okay. We ended up well. Jordan and Morgan both made the World Championship team that event and beat Alyssa. And honestly, there was a couple seconds there where I was like, what have I done? How am I going to do this? But it all turned out okay. You just, to some degree, you got to trust your people. Train them well, trust them. And let the chips fall where they may.
It's just funny to us because next weekend in Austria there will be the nationals, but we split women and men's national split in Austria. I don't know why we do it like that. I think because of scheduling, it's easier for us. And I'm not sure if there will be 60 people in total at women's national this time.
No, it's just 50 signed up.
Yeah.
That's how it used to be here, guys. I mean, I remember going to my first national championships. The idea that there was more than an A session was ridiculous.
I remember watching like old YouTube videos of the American nationals where it was still in like an ice ring or stuff like that.
Oh gosh, the skating rink was one of the better meets, right? There was a lot of people at that. Before that was 2013. If you go back to like 2010, 2009, I mean, there was 80 people signed up in the whole meet. And I mean, I would go to a meet as nationals and get, 9th place and be, that sounds pretty good. 9th in the nation. I was last, y'all. I got last place. There was only 9 people in the class. And so like it just, yeah, it's come a long way in the last 5 years. And so yeah, I mean I don't know how they're going to do the meet in December, but there's going to be a lot of people there, a whole lot. So good. I mean, one more thing for American politics.
So that just leaves us with wishing you the best of luck to you and your team. So hopefully everything just figures out as you planned. Thank you very much for taking the time to talking to us. Everybody listening to that, just one more time, I still want to recommend checking out everything Power and Grace Performance puts out. There, as you probably saw now, there's a lot of information and a lot to learn. One of my favorite platforms to learn about weightlifting. So thanks again for taking the time talking to us.
It was very special
Absolutely.
for us.
Appreciate you guys. Yeah, I enjoyed it. Thanks, guys.
Have a nice day, Spencer.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.